As we all know, most modern women tend to have betas in waiting. The average woman nowadays, while she's young anyway, will have many orbiters. Many of these guys will be simps and betas who will want to marry her. But these women don't want these men as husbands, even if these men are good men and realistically speaking are as high or even higher than her in their overall level of quality as a human being. But anyone who's had experience in life and is perceptive knows that time changes things. By the time a lot of these modern women will consider settling down, a lot of red pill guys believe there will always be simps and betas to wife these girls up. The reality is that by the time many modern women start to get so desperate to marry that she starts to look at her former orbiters as serious prospects, the simps that were available to these women up to that point are beginning to experience their peak in sexual market value. A woman's sexual market value peaks at around 18 years old, and it's nothing but downhill from there. While a man's sexual market value peak is generally at its highest at around 35 to 50 years old. I've linked videos explaining this below. Since many modern women are waiting to marry until their early 30s or older by this time, the simps and betas that she had as orbiters are going through a renaissance. They are just beginning to experience their own peak in sexual market value. By this time, many of these men are at or approaching high points in their career. Many of these men are driving a nice car. Many of these men are wearing nicer clothes. Many of these men weren't invited to all the parties that she was, so they took care of themselves, and since they're making more money now, they're eating healthier than ever, and have trainers, so they look better than they used to. Remember that many women say that men get better looking as they age to an extent. What man throughout history ever said the same about women? Many of these men by now own their own houses and have assets. By the time most modern women decide to marry, those old simp and beta orbiters of hers now have a higher sexual market value than she does. The simps and the betas that orbited her throughout her 20s and teens, now that these men are established in their careers and successful in their 30s. These men are getting more attention from women than they've ever received in their life. These betas and simps are now getting loads of attention from their female peers, the 30-somethings, who are desperate. These same women ignored and disdained them in high school and college. But now she wants him. The reality is she doesn't have the tools to lock a guy down that she used to have back in college and high school. She's older, and due to all the parties, clubbing and promiscuity, she's likely aged like milk. Whereas the simps and betas who were too boring for her in the past, some of these men actually took care of their bodies and have aged like wine relative to her. Moreover, these men are now even beginning to get attention from younger women, women in their early to mid-20s. Don't get me wrong, most of these beta men will still settle down and become simps for their wives, but that doesn't mean that these men are going to choose the women that they orbited in their teens and 20s. Because by the time those women smarten up and realize that they were kicking a gift horse in the mouth, it's too late. By the time she's ready to settle down, her former simp and beta orbiters will have a higher sexual market value than she does. You see, back in their early 20s these men didn't think they could do any better than her, ever. But by the time she wants to settle down, these men have realized that they can do better than the person she's become, and that she isn't the same person that she was. She isn't the same person that these betas and simps orbited. Even if these men couldn't do better than the 20-year-old version of her, it's irrelevant, as she isn't that person anymore. She doesn't have the same potential, and she ruined it through her own choices and actions. Now some of these orbiters are more attractive than they've ever been. By the time they're in their 30s, these men who made the right choices and who were driven can get a younger version of her with less baggage, less partners, healthier eggs, and a less jaded outlook. You see, most women nowadays are living one big party from their teens to their late 20s. Yeah, that's right, she was living one big party, and guess what? Her orbiters weren't invited. The simps and betas who followed her around like a puppy dog had to actually become responsible. They had to adapt. Because they wouldn't have a chance of getting laid much if they didn't have their shit together. You see, she used to be the master of her orbiters and they were her loyal apprentices. But by the time she sees their value, they've become the master, relative to her. They may still be betas, but even still, betas who are in their 30s and somewhat successful have a much higher market value as a potential husband than a used-up party girl who's desperate now that she has the baby rabies does as a potential wife. Guys can smell the desperation on these women. The roles are reversed. When she was young, guys were desperate for her and she had a laid-back attitude because of her myriad of options. Now that laid-back attitude is gone, because she must start a family, like yesterday. Her former orbiters on the other hand can wait a while to start a family if they so choose, that combined with their somewhat decreased sex drive and them experiencing more opportunities with women than they ever had previously, and they're not as desperate as they used to be. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that her orbiters will magically become chick magnets as they become more successful, but their options will increase a lot relative to their teenage and college years, when they were considered nobodies. Her orbiters no longer have the allegiance towards her that they used to. As such, her former simps and betas will have a choice on who they will want to simp for the rest of their lives, i.e. on who they want to marry. Their choice will be between the women their own age who never appreciated them all the years they knew them, or younger women with less mileage, more fertility, and who are more attractive, while the girl he used to orbit just doesn't look the same anymore. Moreover, the girl he used to orbit is not the same anymore. Which girl do you think these former orbiters are going to pick? If you like my content, please like the video, bang the bell and subscribe for more videos, and feel free to comment. Thanks.